All right, guys, I just want to walk you into the topic, assumable mortgage. Um, I wanted to share with you what we know and understand about assumable mortgages. I'm a realtor in Delaware. My guy on the screen is my guy, Matt Garland. He's a top lender throughout the country based out of New York. Um, I've met this guy years ago by looking at a video of his and was comparing it to a video I did. And basically shared what I knew and then shared what he knew. Um, and he's very knowledgeable, been in the business for about 20 some years or so. So he knows what he's talking about. And just wanted to share with you the take. My name is Sean Brooks, aka the real estate guy, based out of Delaware. And just listen to this, right? Assumable mortgages is when a person has a mortgage already and they want to sell their house and you're assuming the current mortgage that's left on it. That's the basic principle of it, but it's some things that has changed in this spectrum as far as like how people are trying to sell these houses now. So I want you to listen in on his take. He does these deals a lot. So let's listen to what he has to say.
You, the buyer, are taking over the current owners of the house or the sellers of the house current financing, right? You're taking over their debt. So if you're buying a house from someone and let's just say they owe $300,000 on a loan and it's an FHA mortgage. Well, before I say that, with assumable mortgages, only certain mortgages that are assumable. Now, we're talking traditional home buying, right? We're not talking investing, okay? Because that's a whole different animal when it comes to assumable mortgages. But for traditional home buyers, they only FHA, VA, and USDA loans are assumable. Conventional mortgages are not assumable.
Okay.
All right. So that's first things first. Second thing is you need to know is when you're doing an assumable mortgage, you have to go through the seller's current lender who they pay the mortgage to to qualify for that mortgage that the sellers currently have. So if the sellers owe currently $300,000 at a 2.5% interest rate on an FHA loan, and you go through the seller's lender that they currently pay the mortgage to, and you qualify, then you can potentially assume their mortgage. So let's just say they bought the house 5 years ago.
Okay.
Right? Or let's just use round numbers. They bought it in 2020.
Right.
Right? And they bought it, they started the loan at 350 and today they owe 300 and it's a 2.5% interest rate. And they got they've been in the house for 2.5 years now.
Okay.
So they got, what's that, 27.5 years left on the mortgage. So you're assuming they stop, right? So you're going to have a 27.5 year term. You're going to have the 3% mortgage with the balance of $300,000.
What do you have? Do you have 3% or 2?
2.5, whatever. Okay. I'm sorry, 2.5%. I said it was right. So you'll have whatever their terms are, 2.5%, whatever their current balance is. If it's 300,000, and if they only been in the house for 2.5 years, then you have 27.5 years left on the term of that mortgage.
Okay.
So you're assuming the current debt that they have.
Okay.
Now here's the flip side. Here's the con of assumable mortgage. Let's say their house is worth $500,000.
Okay.
All right, so this is what's currently happening today, 2024. So just listen to what he's saying. And I ran into this a little bit already. So let's see.
And you're assuming their mortgage for
300,000.
There's a $200,000 gap between what they currently owe and the value of the house. What do you think has to happen?
So they've already paid $200,000.
No, I didn't say that. They owe
All right, now listen up. Listen very clearly to this. They owe 300. The house is valued at 500.
100,000. and the house is worth 500,000 and they're selling the house for what it's worth at 500,000.
Oh, I had it the other way around. I thought you meant that they were
Correct.
paid 200,000.
But you're assuming their current loan at 300,000. But they're
Yeah.
selling you the house for 5.
So that's a come up for them, isn't it?
For who?
For the seller,
How?
because now they have that equity. And
Yes, the seller has the equity, correct.
right.
So now the buyer has to pay that difference out of pocket,
What difference?
the 200,000. Because they're selling you the house. So let me break it down more in layman terms.
Okay.
I'm selling my house to you, Tukes.
Okay.
Okay. I owe 300,000. It's an FHA loan, and I have a 2.5% interest rate. But I'm selling you my house for 500,000. You like, yo, Matt, if I go through the bank right now, my bank, I'll get like a 6.5%, and I can't afford that. But at your 300,000 and 2.5%, that's a payment I can afford.
Right.
But I'm like, Tukes, my house worth 500, and I want my 500,000.
Okay.
So there's a gap of 200K.
Right. So what happens?
You got to pay me 200K
Out of my pocket?
Yes.
All right. And see, this is what's gonna make it complicated because the only buyer for that situation is somebody that has 200K. Now you could try to get it from, another source or whatever, the 200K, to then be able to purchase that house. But that's a tough situation for most people.
Oh, no, we ain't doing that then.
Then congratulations and go with your 3.5% down at 6.5% then.
So this is a play more or a tool rather than because
this is a tool and a play if you got money.
Okay, got you.
And it's a play and a tool if you meet a seller who might not have that much equity.
So basically,
all right. So what I'm always looking for in this situation is the one that don't have so much equity. So I'm looking for somebody, and see, this is the complicated part about that equity position right now in Delaware. So a house that sold last year, let's use simple math. Let's say it sold for 300,000. Okay. So we got $300,000 house. That's what the mortgage is for. All right. Now, a year, it's not going to be that many payments that go towards the principal. So we're just going to use, for simplicity, 300,000. And we're going to use the average percent that it went up from like last year times 12.5%. So it's 37,500. So now that $300,000 house is 337,500. All right. So it went up by $37,500. All right. You may be able to get a mortgage for the 300 and then get a personal loan for the 37,500. All right. That might be a little bit more feasible. Or let's say you got 20,000. So now you just got to get a personal loan of 17.5%. But what complicates these deals is this. You have to have your credit pulled for this one particular house. And if everything don't go well with it, you find another one, you got to have your credit pulled again. So it can be, a challenge to get this done versus if you had your credit pulled and now you know what you're being financed for and then finding a house. Yes, you got to pay higher interest. But interest rates on the East Coast, at least from what I know, they have gone down 5 weeks straight. So they have started to go down. I think let me look on my phone right now. I got something from one of my lenders at 6.3. Let's see. I think 6.36 it was. Let's see. Just looking for his information. He text me pretty much weekly. Yeah, 6.36, I think it is here. So it has started to come down. Well, it's probably hovering around like 7% at one point. So it started to come down. So most likely it's going to continue to come down. But this is the situation with assumable mortgages. Just want you guys to understand. Before, the way it was presented was you're just assuming whatever with the outstanding mortgage. Now folks are a little bit more savvy and they know that the house is worth more money. So they're going to try to capture that equity out of the house.
Depends on what the house is actually worth.
Worth and what they owe. So if they are in a position, if they own the house for years, and now we see what home prices did,
Right.
people got a lot of equity. But if
Mm,
they're in a situation where, yo, they brought at the top of the market and they're trying to sell it a year or two within,
right.
and they have a good interest rate that's lower than the current market, but they might be a little tight or a little bit no equity or minimum equity, right? They can't afford the house. No matter what the rate is, they can't afford it. They need to get out of it. And now their rate, let's just say their rate is 3.5% or 4%, but the current market is 6.5.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's still why it makes sense for an assumable mortgage, because now that difference, let's just say it's 50,000. Bet you can handle that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you assume it. So the assumable mortgage play is really good when the seller doesn't have a lot of equity, or if you're a buyer who just was going to put that amount of money down anyway. So if you got the capital,
Yeah.
if I'm a person buying a 500K, let's just say I was going to put 30-40% down anyway,
Mm-hmm.
because I got the money. So now, yeah, it's a play. I can assume your mortgage. But now when I assume your mortgage, remember, if it's an FHA loan, you're going to still have that PMI,
See that.
even with putting that amount down. So it might not make sense for you. But check this out. If they have a VA loan, even if you're not a veteran, you can do an assumable mortgage with a seller who's a veteran who has a VA loan, and VA loans have no PMI, and they always have low rates. So if you find a veteran who's selling a house
Right.
in that particular situation, even if you had to put a larger down payment, you can still come off and win on a assumable loan strategy.
Does the money that you have to pay them the difference, let's say if I had to pay the 200,000, is that something that I, like you as a seller, can say, you know what, I don't need 100,000, just give me 100? I mean,
No,
I need
fuck that. Why would I say that? I mean,
right, but it's an option. So
I
it's something that happens
can.
behind the scenes, or
Yeah.
something that's on paper.
No, it's on paper. So
Okay.
you got to bring it as cash to close.
Right.
Because now, again, remember we was talking about garden gardeners and people sell their house for dirt cheap or whatever
Right.
the case.
Then it messes up the
It
value.
messes up the value of everybody else's house. But if I'm a seller and I have tons of equity, I'm not desperate.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But if I'm a seller who might just can't financially afford, and I don't have a lot of equity in my house anyway, now that me having an assumable mortgage can be attractive to a buyer now, because instead of them getting the market rates, they can get what I have currently.
Right.
Now, assumable mortgage is a process. It could take 45 days. It could take 60 days. So you got to set your expectations too when you're doing an assumable mortgage. But it's a play if you have the money or you find a seller who doesn't have a lot of equity in the house.
What if you,
Now, before, the perks was of this was that you taking over somebody's mortgage at that particular cost. But I can't see a total reason why you want to take over somebody's mortgage, at 300,000, let's say at 3%, but you have to give them 200,000 for the down payment. Like that's a stretch. But if you have the money, then by all means, this is an excellent way to get into a house. So I'm not going to play the rest of this video, but I just wanted to share that with you guys. All right. So hopefully, you may be in a position, and if you are, reach out to me, and I'll be delighted to sit down and see what we can find. Preferably, I would probably would like, a veteran, because I think the VA one is way better. As far as like the perks that come along with it. All right. So if you guys have any questions, just reach out to me.